A man in Columbus is looking at an uncertain future after a fight over a fast food order. NBC4's Kyle Beachy spoke with the victim of a brutal beatdown that ended in facial reconstruction surgery.
Kerrigan Norwood just wanted a late night meal, so he stopped by this McDonald's off of East 17th. He says they messed up his order, so he went back through the drive-thru to get it corrected. But he never imagined what would happen next.
All the silver sandwich, it didn't need to go that far.
Here's what Norwood looked like after the brutal fight just after midnight on October 17th this year.
I had to get a titanium implant. I still got a little bit of double vision. Sensitive to light, so I wear glasses.
Norwood had plans to enlist in the military, following in his mother's footsteps. But due to the severity of his injuries, now he's not sure he'll be able to.
Just a slew of criminals without any proof that they can be in society and not be a threat to society, because that's exactly what these monsters are, a threat to society.
He came back to McDonald's after realizing his order was wrong. He went through the drive-thru and says he was met with hostility.
Everybody except the manager, everybody in the crew, the person that took my order, the fry cooks, cashiers, all wanted to come yelling at me at the window.
Several crew members exited the building. One of them had a full cup.
Fluid was thrown in my car. I didn't know what it was, so when I tried to get out and call for help, that's when they jumped me and beat me.
Norwood says for 10 minutes he struggled.
And they basically jumped me, grabbed me, pulled my shirt over my head, started punching me in the face, beat me. Didn't stop until one of the other patrons in the drive-thru said they were calling the police.
3 McDonald's employees are facing an assault charge. That case has been sent before a grand jury. But for Norwood, justice doesn't necessarily give him another shot at his dream of joining the military. Local for you, I'm Kyle Beachy, NBC4.
At least 3 people died in rain-related incidents as cyclone Fenjol passed through South India. The cyclone hit the Indian mainland between North Tamil Nadu and Puducherry late on Saturday. Amid heavy rainfall, schools and colleges in Puducherry, they have announced holiday today. Puducherry experienced severe flooding with 50 centimeters of rainfall, the highest rainfall in the Union Territory in the last 30 years. The Indian Army conducted rescue and relief operations in the affected areas.
We have rescued around 500 people, more than 500 actually, and we have also provided relief of food and water to residents who are stuck in first and second floor. Also, we have provided first aid to some elder people.
The Chennai airport was closed for over 16 hours with flights cancelled or diverted. Although the airport reopened on Sunday morning, heavy rains affected flight operations. Fenjol moved west-southwards and gradually weakened into a deep depression. Schools and colleges in many districts in Tamil Nadu are also shut, and hundreds of people have been moved to relief camps. The Indian Weather Agency has now issued a red alert for intense spell of rains in several districts of Tamil Nadu and neighbouring Union Territory of Puducherry. Warnings have also been issued to fishermen against venturing into the sea. And well, for more on this, our correspondent Siddharth MP has sent us this ground report from Puducherry. Take a look.
We're coming to you from beside the Chunnamba River in Puducherry. This is actually a residential area. There's almost chest deep water, or at some places more than 6 feet water, the kind of water where one can get submerged, which is why the NDRF is here using a motorboat and heading out into the area to rescue people. There's about 150 homes in this area and at least 400 to 500 people. So the task at hand is to not just rescue those who are in need of help, especially women, those with little babies, senior citizens. All of them are being rescued first priority. In addition to that, there's also essential supplies being provided, including food, water, milk, and any other essential supplies that they may require. So on a priority basis, people as we speak are being evacuated. So here you can see so many life vests on this boat. All of them are meant for the people who will be boarding this vessel in some time. So it's a motorboat that we're going on board, and this indicates that the water here is flowing at quite a fast rate, and this is also because of the Vidur Dam, which is overflowing, and from there the Chunamba River actually is in spate, and that is what has caused this kind of flooding in this part of Puducherry. In fact, some parts of Puducherry are getting back to normal, but certain regions are flooded for more than 48 to 72 hours now, and where we are is one sort of region of that category. From Puducherry, Siddharth MP, Beyond World is One.
Now, at least 3 people died in rain-related incidents as Cyclone Fenjal passed through South India.
The cyclone hit the Indian mainland between North Tamil Nadu and Puducherry late on Saturday. Amid heavy rainfall, schools and colleges in Puducherry, they have announced holiday today. Puducherry experienced severe flooding with 50 centimeters of rainfall, the highest rainfall the Union Territory has received in over 30 years. The Indian Army conducted rescue and relief operations in the affected areas.
We have rescued around 500 people, more than 500 actually, and we have also provided relief of food and water to residents who are stuck in first and second floor. Also, we have provided first aid to some elder people.
The Chennai airport was closed for over 16 hours with flights cancelled or diverted. Although the airport reopened on Sunday morning, heavy rains affected flight operations.
Fenjal moved west-southwards and gradually weakened into a deep depression. Schools and colleges in many districts in Tamil Nadu are also shut, and hundreds of people have been moved to relief camps.
The Indian Weather Agency has issued a red alert for intense spells of rain in several districts of Tamil Nadu and neighbouring Union Territory of Puducherry. Warnings have also been issued to fishermen against venturing into the sea.
نفذت القوات البحرية وسلاح الجو المسير والقوة الصاروخية في القوات المسلحة اليمنية بعون الله تعالى عملية عسكرية نوعية ومشتركة استهدفت مدمرة أمريكية و3 سفن إمداد تابعة للجيش الأمريكي، وهي سفينة أستينا إمبيكيبل وسفينة ميرسيك ساراتوغا وسفينة ليبرتي جريس. ونفذت العملية ب16 صاروخا باليستيا ومجنحا وطائرة مسيرة في البحر العربي وخليج عدن، وكانت الإصابات دقيقة ومباشرة بفضل الله. إن القوات المسلحة اليمنية ستواصل تنفيذ عملياتها العسكرية بوتيرة متصاعدة في منطقة العمليات البحرية المعلن عنها ضد العدو الإسرائيلي والأمريكي، وأنها لن تتوقف إلا بوقف العدوان ورفع الحصار عن قطاع غزة. نفذت القوة الصاروخية في القوات المسلحة اليمنية بعون الله تعالى عملية استهداف لهدف حيوي بمنطقة يافا المحتلة، وذلك بصاروخ فرط صوتي نوع فلسطين 2، وقد أصاب الصاروخ هدفه بنجاح بفضل الله. إن القوات المسلحة اليمنية وأمام استمرار الجرائم الإسرائيلية في قطاع غزة ستضاعف من عملياتها العسكرية بالصواريخ والطائرات المسيرة، وذلك ضمن تأديتها للواجب الديني والأخلاقي والإنساني نصرة وإسنادا للمجاهدين في قطاع غزة وفي الضفة الغربية. إن عمليات القوات المسلحة اليمنية لن تتوقف إلا بوقف العدوان على قطاع غزة.
President Joe Biden arrived in Angola on Monday for his long-awaited first presidential visit to sub-Saharan Africa. He will use the 3-day trip to counter China's influence by highlighting an ambitious US-backed railway project. The Lobito Corridor Railway project, which will span across Zambia, Congo and Angola, aims to advance US presence in the region. In Angola, Biden plans to meet with the country's president, visit the National Slavery Museum and travel to the port city of Lobito. His visit comes with weeks left in his presidency as Donald Trump prepares to take office on the 20th of January. Biden promised to visit Africa last year, but the trip was pushed back because of Hurricane Milton.
This morning, President Biden is en route to Angola after a holiday weekend spent with family on Nantucket, stopping briefly in Washington in between and announcing he's pardoning his son, Hunter. Hunter was convicted of lying on a form about his drug use when he purchased a gun and in a separate case agreed to plead guilty to tax charges. Biden argues his son's charges came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election. The president's decision is a reversal from a position he held for months.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes. The pardon goes beyond Hunter's gun and tax charges, also covering offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1, 2014 through December 1, 2024. The chairman of the House Oversight Committee, a Republican, accuses Biden of skirting accountability. Democratic House Representative Greg Stanton of Arizona also criticized Biden's decision, saying Hunter committed felonies and was convicted by a jury of his peers. Biden is not the first president to use his pardon powers before leaving office. President Clinton pardoned a former business partner and his half-brother, Roger Clinton. President Trump pardoned Charles Kushner, his son-in-law's father, and just announced as Trump's pick for ambassador to France. In response to Biden's decision, Trump wrote, "Does the pardon given by Joe to Hunter include the January 6th hostages?" addressing a promise he campaigned off of. Trump has also promised to go after those he considers political enemies and has announced plans to fire FBI Director Christopher Wray, replacing him with longtime ally Kash Patel, who has vowed to help the president-elect with his plan for retribution.
Putting his son in the Bureau of Prisons within the power and control of Donald Trump, a political rival, it was probably something as a father he needed to do to protect his son.
Hunter Biden potentially faced decades in prison. In a statement, he said he will not take this decision for granted and will devote the life he has rebuilt in his sobriety to helping those who are sick and suffering. Christiane Cordero, ABC News.
Donald Trump has a new target, the BRICS group of nations. It started off as a club of 4 developing nations, Brazil, Russia, India and China. Over the years, 5 more countries joined. South Africa, Ethiopia, Iran, Egypt and the UAE. So 9 members in total. The BRICS is often seen as an alternative to the G7, a sort of rival to the Western order, and Donald Trump doesn't like that. He's targeting a cornerstone of the BRICS agenda, de-dollarization. The idea is to reduce trade in US dollars and instead use local currencies. That is de-dollarization. Local currencies like the Indian rupee or the Russian ruble or the Chinese yuan. Donald Trump doesn't like that one bit. Listen to what he said on social media, and I'm quoting, "We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful US economy. They can find another sucker." A typical Trump threat. Adjectives plus high stakes plus Twitter post. But what's his plan here? Well, tariffs seem to be Trump's new favorite weapon, whether it's against Canada or against Mexico or against China, or now against the BRICS nations. Donald Trump says, promise to not abandon the US dollar. If not, he will impose a 100% tariff on BRICS goods. Suppose an Indian car is being imported into the US. The price of the car is $12,000. American importers will have to pay 100% of that as import duty. That means another $12,000. So the cost of that vehicle in America just doubled. That's how tariffs work. Now, how realistic is this threat by Donald Trump? Most of the BRICS nations have not reacted yet, but Russia has. They say such threats will accelerate the dollar's decline.
If the United States use force, as they say, economic influence of some kind, to make other countries use the dollar, it will probably further strengthen the tendencies to use national currencies. Dollar is beginning to lose its attractiveness as a reserve currency for a number of countries.
Trump's allies say it's all about leverage. He's not serious about the tariffs. He's using it to gain an upper hand in negotiations. They also point to the example of Canada. Last month, Trump threatened Canada with 25% tariffs. And what did Prime Minister Justin Trudeau do? He flew down to Florida and dined with Donald Trump. So his supporters say it's a winning strategy. Just 2 problems, though. 1, BRICS is not Canada. BRICS makes up 40% of the global population, more than 37% of the global GDP, and 23% of global trade. And their leaders are not like Justin Trudeau either. They don't respond well to threats, Which brings us to the second problem. Trump's tariff logic is flawed. He seems to think that tariffs will not hurt American consumers. They will only hurt the exporting nations. Listen to his remarks on the campaign trail.
Tariff nation, it's not going to be a cost to you, it's going to be a cost to another country. I'm not raising your taxes, I'm raising China and all of these countries in Asia and all over the world, including the European Union, by the way, which is one of the most egregious.
Yes, tariffs will hurt exporting nations, but they will also hurt American consumers because they will have to pay more for the same goods, which is why this 100% threat is all bluster. It's a very unlikely approach. Having said that, expect roadblocks to de-dollarization. Donald Trump will make it a lot harder than Joe Biden. So how can BRICS nations respond? For starters, there is no unity on this issue. Russia and China are aggressively pushing for de-dollarization. The other members are not. Like India. New Delhi's goal is to globalize the Indian rupee. It does not want to target the US dollar, and Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar has made that pretty clear.
We have never actively targeted the dollar. That's not part of either our economic policy or our political or our strategic policy. Some others may have.
The dollar makes up more than half of all trade invoices, plus 58% of forex reserves. The share is falling, but it's still quite high. It would take decades to overhaul this dollar dominance, and that is assuming that all BRICS nations are on board, which they're clearly not at this point. So Trump's best bet is to work with like-minded nations. Many countries dislike how America weaponizes its dollar dominance, like cutting countries off from payment systems or freezing their dollar reserves. That sort of stuff triggered the need for de-dollarization in the first place. Instead of correcting it, what does Donald Trump do? Threaten more economic coercion. In that context, Russia's warning does make sense. Right now, there is no global consensus on de-dollarization. Donald Trump's bravado might end up creating it.
Over the last weeks, the US and Canada have witnessed a war of words about illegal migrants as the US President-elect Donald Trump threatened to impose tariffs on Canada in case of continued flow of drugs and immigrants through its borders. While the Canadian Prime Minister tried to dose the fire with a dinner alongside Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, new data has surfaced suggesting a multifold surge in illegal crossings through the US-Canada border by Indian nationals. As per the data released by the US Customs and Border Patrol, the number of Indians attempting to enter the United States illegally grew to 22% of the total number, which in itself has also increased. Notably, the data provided only includes the number of people who were caught by Border Patrol, and none of those who were able to cross the border undetected. According to the data given by the USCPB, out of the 109,000 such crossings, Indians comprised nearly 16% of the crossings between October to September of 2022, although the percentage remained constant in the year 2023. The figure in 2024 rose to 43,000 Indians out of the 198,000 people, close to 22%. Among the reasons listed behind the emergence of the US-Canada border as a preferred route to gain entry into the US is the fact that the said border is longer and less guarded than that of Mexico, and it's easier to get a visitor visa in Canada than getting a US one. Trump had previously threatened Canada with a 25% tariff on its exports to the United States in a push to resolve the border crisis. This was also one of the major issues discussed during Prime Minister Trudeau's meeting with Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Canada's ambassador to the US, Kirsten Hillman, has said that the talks with Trump were successful and Prime Minister Trudeau was able to convince Trump that Canadian borders cannot be compared with Mexico's.
Up next, it's time for Truth or Fake. Joined in studio by Catalina Marchand Abreu. Catalina, in today's edition, we are turning to the war in Ukraine and specifically claims that President Joe Biden has been talking about returning nuclear weapons to Kyiv. Tell us more about that.
That's right. Those are rumors that have been going around since Thursday that the Biden administration could possibly be considering to return the nuclear weapons that Ukraine gave up in the 1990s. This is based off this New York Times article that was published on November 21st, titled "Trump Vows to End the War Could Leave Ukraine with Few Options," where this article discusses Western options to help Kyiv defend itself ahead of Donald Trump's return to office. So in this paragraph, the New York Times says, here's the paragraph in question, that several officials, unnamed officials in this article, even suggested that Mr. Biden could return nuclear weapons to Ukraine that were taken from it after the fall of the Soviet Union, which they say could be an instant and enormous deterrent. Of such a step could be complicated and have serious implications, of course. Since the publication of this article, many users, including influential personalities on social media, such as shared this info, including conspiracy theorist Alex Jones on his InfoWars show. He writes on this post, seen over 1.9 million times on X, he says, "Massive nuclear escalation alert," where he adds, "World War III has never been closer," in reference to this article by the New York Times. Check.
So what's actually happening then? Is Joe Biden returning nuclear weapons to Ukraine or not? Have you been able to debunk those claims?
At this stage, these can only be considered baseless claims made by some anonymous U.S. officials that were mentioned and unnamed by the New York Times, as the nuclear arsenals that Ukraine once possessed are not even in Washington's hands to begin with. So where did Ukraine nukes go to in the first place? They actually went to Russia in 1994, following this Budapest Memorandum that was signed on December 5th, 1994, an international agreement between Ukraine, the U.S., the U.K., and Russia. Following the Cold War, this international agreement saw Ukraine, that was once the world's third largest nuclear power, now relinquish all of its nuclear arsenal to Russia in exchange for what Ukraine says were unfulfilled security agreements or guarantees. Ukraine's nuclear disarmament began in March 1994 and was completed by 1996. However, none of these nuclear arsenals made it to the U.S., according to these existing records, including this 1999 publication of nuclear disarmament, citing the White House fact sheet. Sure.
And what then were the global repercussions, Catalina, of this New York Times publication, if there were any at all?
Following this publication by the New York Times, where they reported that unidentified Western officials were discussing handing Ukraine their nuclear arsenals, senior Russian officials obviously spoke out on the matter, claiming that these discussions could have serious consequences. Senior Russian security official Dmitry Medvedev went to Telegram on Tuesday in response to this article, claiming that the American politicians and journalists are seriously discussing the consequences of transferring nuclears to Kyiv. The media also picked up on these statements by reporting that Russia's Medvedev warns the West over discussing nuclear weapons for Ukraine, which would prove grounds for a Russian nuclear response. As Russia's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov also condemned this discussion of the West about arming Ukraine with nuclear weapons as completely irresponsible, in response to this report published by the New York Times, as this war between Ukraine and Russia has observed unprecedented escalation in the past 2 weeks, nuclear escalation, with Putin also warning that this Ukraine war is going global.
Catalina, thank you so much for that. Tonight's Truth or Fake. Well, that is it from us for now. Stay with us, though. We'll be right back.
15 Chinese military aircraft and 7 naval vessels were spotted operating around Taiwan during a 24-hour period between Sunday and Monday. The Defense Ministry says several aircraft crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait separating Taiwan and China. Others flew into southwestern and eastern parts of Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. The ADIZ is not Taiwan's airspace, but a buffer zone used for defensive purposes.